Welcome back as we continue learning more and more about variables. In this case, I wanted to introduce something called running totals and counts. Running total simply means I'm going to let people buy stuff in their shopping cart so they can order stuff at my store here. And as they add stuff to the cart, I want to keep track of how much they owe me. I also want to keep what's called a count, a running count, and that is how many items they purchased. So down here in this label, it's going to say you spent 17 bucks, you purchased one item. Now, as I'm doing this, you can see, well, Ron, it's not exactly doing what you just said because it doesn't seem to be keeping a running total or a running count. I mean, it's not quitting, it's not blowing up, but again, I must have some kind of a logic error because it's just not doing what I'm wanting it to do. And this is part of the lesson that I want to teach you. It's kind of not enough to know just how to create variables. You have to know where to create your variables because putting them in the right spot will radically change how your program works, as you're going to see here in a second. So notice the way I did this. I'll show you my code. It looked perfectly logical, but it's just not doing what I want. So again, a logic error. So as I quit this, I want to come into the box here and I want to show you what I did. In the click event for the button, I went ahead and I created some variables. I created a decimal data type for the grand total and set it to 0. This is going to hold my running total. I created an integer to keep track of the number of items that they purchased. I call them num items. And then I do something that we haven't seen before, and that is when they select an item, I'm going to run this again and show you. When they select an item, you'll notice that it will automatically put the item up here and it puts the price down here, and I want to show you how I did that. Okay? So in the list box, you remember I showed you how to add items to a list box? Well, I want to show you a little trick here that you can use. And this is just so that I can teach you how to work with strings more than anything. You really wouldn't do this on a real application because you couldn't make changes to it. But anyway, go into the items collection like we did before, and look what I did this time. I typed in my items and then I used the space bar to move over here a little ways, and I put in some prices. I just made up some prices. Don't try to align these, and don't ever use the tab key. You just always use a space bar. When they select boots, the list box will select this entire line. If they select hats, it's going to select this entire line, and that's all one long item. What I want to do in my code is I want to say, well, you know what? Sunglasses is kind of my longest thing. So let's go over here a few spaces, I don't know, 15 or so spaces, and let's take what I've highlighted and put it over into the item box, and let's get rid of all those blank spaces. We know how to do that because we know how to use trim. And then we'll say, keep going, computer, and go over here to line or column 20, let's say, or whatever this is, and go all the way to the end of the line, get rid of the blanks, and put the price over here. So as they pick items dynamically in here, golf balls, shirts, spikes, whatever, it's going to select this entire line. That's what I want you to see a picture of. And what you need to do is you need to just look on your own code and see how many spaces that is. So mine is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So about 10 or 11 spaces is my longest item. So I would probably go over to 15 just so I could give myself a little room for expansion. So I might say take the first 15 characters, trim it, and put that over here in the text box, and then go over here maybe to 20. I could go to 16 if I wanted to, but I kind of just skip around. Go to 20 and read to the end of the line, and take that after you trim it and put that in as the price. And I'm not going to worry about these things being lined up. You can't line them up because it's proportional fonts. But the way I'm going to show you how to do it, you don't have to worry about where the line ends, okay? So when you're building this, go into the items property. This time, use your space bar and move over enough to where you can put in some prices. Now the reason I put the prices over to the right is because I don't want the prices showing up like this. See how ugly that looks? So I always space them over a ways so you don't see them. Just because you can't see them doesn't mean you can't use them. Alright, here's what we do. When they click on add to cart, I want to take boots, put it over here, and I want to take the price of boots and put it down here. That's the main thing I want to show you right there. So here we go. I'm going down here and I'm going to say, let's go into the list box items. Now I called mine LST items, and this time I'm using the text property. It just makes it easier when you're grabbing pieces and parts from a string, because now the list box will read that as text. So we're going to say take the text and let's use the substring method. Now this is part of the string class and allows you to split up strings, allows you to move things around. And in the substring design, the way it is, it'll say I need two things. I need to know which character do you want me to start with, or which column you want me to start with, and then how many do you want me to go. So I'm going to say start at column 0. Remember, numbers from 0. And I want you to go 15 characters, just like I showed you a second ago. So it's just going to grab the first 15 characters from the left side of the selected item, and then it's going to trim them, and it's going to put them over in that text box. It's going to put them in a variable called item selected. Now these are variables here. It's not showing on the screen yet. Okay. Then I'm going to go over here and I say, all right, keep going with this selected item. Okay. So lst items.text substring. I'm going to start at 16, and then I'm going to trim it. Now notice the difference between this line and this one. Up here I had a start and an ending point. Here I just have a starting point. So write something down. When you have a start and an ending point, you say start, I could start anywhere I wanted and go 15 characters from there. So if I said start at 10 and go 15, it's going to start counting from character 10. Okay, it doesn't start counting from the left side. But when you only give it a starting position and you don't give it an end, it reads to the end of the line, which is perfect for me because I don't know how many spaces I'm going to have in there, and I don't care. So it doesn't matter how far over the prices are or not, it'll work fine. Okay? So that's how it works. That's the substring method of the string class. Now with this guy, because I want it to be treated as money, I'm going to go ahead and convert it to decimal, just like we did before, and pop it into this variable called price. Okay, now we want to put some stuff into the text boxes so they can see them. I'm going to say take the selected item, the item I selected up here, this guy right here, and pop it into this text box, and then take the price that we just split from that and go ahead and throw it into this text box so now we can see it on the screen. All right, so that stuff is a little new, but it's still the same kind of process. What is new is, now that we've done that, I want to keep a running total. Well, I created my variable here called grand total. And what I want to do is I want to take the grand total, which will start off at 0 the first time. I want to add the price to it. Now, I'm going to show you two ways of doing this. I can say grand total equals grand total plus price. And you can look at that and you say, wait a minute, my math teacher would have a cow if she saw me showing you how to do that. This can't work in algebra. That's because it's not algebra. What we're doing here is we're telling the computer the new value of grand total is going to be equal to the old value plus the price. Now if you want to read it from the right, you say take the grand total, whatever it is right now, add the price to it, and put it back into that same memory location called grand total. So that's called an assignment. We're not doing algebra with this equal sign. A few years ago they came out with a simpler way of doing this, kind of a shorthand thing, and it says grand total plus equals price. Now some students prefer this. Some of you will prefer this. It doesn't matter which one you use, they both work fine. This is what I learned because that's all we used to have. I've kind of gotten used to this, and so I've gone ahead and used it. You have a minus equals, a divide equals, a multiplication equals if you want to do the same thing. These two are equivalent, so I want you to write them both down so that you remember that and then try them. Okay? Now, that is going to take the current price and add it to the grand total. And every time they hit the add to cart sign, I want it to take the new price and keep adding it so I have a running total. Okay. Then I want to do the number of items. There are a couple ways to do this. You can say num items plus plus. Now when you see a plus plus, that just takes a variable and adds 1 to it. So num items starts off with 0 because I initialized it to 0 up here. And then when I say num items plus plus, whatever it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's going to add 1 to it. That's the same as saying num items equals num items plus 1. kind of like the thing I showed you up there. That's the old way we did it. Or you can say num items plus equals 1, like I did the grand total. So you have like 3 options with these things. What I want you to write down is that a running total will always go up and down by a variable amount. Let me say it again. A running total will always go up and down by a variable amount because it varies based on the price you're adding to it. On the other hand, when you're counting something, a count always goes up or goes down by a fixed amount. In this case, it's always going up by 1. But I could make it negative and make it subtract things, like if they were returning items or something. But that's the difference in the definition between a count and a total. And that's just the words they use in programming, counts and totals. Okay? Finally, I just concatenated the results and put them into those labels you saw at the bottom. All right, now I want to do something here. If I can get both of these on screen, I want to run this, and I want you to look at my code, and I want you to look and see if you can figure out why this dorky thing isn't working. Because once again, we have no problem compiling it. It's working fine. It's just not giving me the right answer. It should be adding up things, and all it's doing, it gives me one item and it gives me the latest price, but that's all it does. Take a look at that. Can you see why it's not working? If you look very carefully and remember what I said about local variables, I told you when you create variables up here in a block of code like this, they're called local variables. And you remember I said every time the click button or the add button is clicked, it's going to create these variables and set it to 0. And it does all this math, shows it on the screen, everything's cool. I click add again, it comes in here, it creates the variables all over again, it does it again. So there's no way that it can keep a running total or count because I keep resetting my variables. Now that's not a problem with C#, that's just a problem with me programming it the wrong way, putting stuff in the wrong place. Here is what I need to do to fix it. Let me quit this. I need to take these variables and I need to move them out of this particular event handler, because as long as I leave them in there, I think you'll agree, I don't have a chance at doing what I want to do. So I need to keep them, I need to use them. I want the same name, but I need to put them somewhere where they don't get reset all the time. So let me take these lines and I'm just going to comment them out. Okay? And I'm going to move up here just a little bit. I want to show you that if you will create your variables up here outside of one of these event handlers, it can't be in any event handler. But it has to be part of your form. Now this is where your form starts. It says class, FRM counts. Now remember, a class is a block of code that can be turned into an object. In this case, it gets turned into a form. So what I've done is I've taken those variables and I've put them up here inside the form, but they're all by themselves. You see, they're not inside the constructor, they're not anywhere. What you've made when you do this, you create class or module level variables. So write that down. A class level or a module level variable is one in which they're declared outside of a block of code. They can't be inside any block of code, but they have to be inside the form. When you do that, you can access these puppies from anywhere inside this form, or anytime or inside of any class, but this class happens to make a form. So theoretically, when this runs, it will create my variables and initialize them, but down here it won't reset them. The fact that they're up here, I can use it in any event handler on the form. I can add to them, I can subtract to them, I can do whatever I want because they're up there. So now I'm going to save this and run this, and let's see if in fact that did what I wanted. So if they buy boots, okay, that's 50 bucks, let's say, and one item. Now I got a hat, and now it's up to 70 bucks and 2 items. Ah, see, it's kind of doing what I want it to do. They could buy another shirt, right? They can sit there and buy stuff all day. Who am I to say you can't buy more than $1,000 at my store? You can buy whatever you want. Okay, now it's working properly, and I want you to see and understand the difference. Remember that when you create variables at the local level inside of a click event, these always get erased. All this stuff gets erased when the click event is done. What do I mean when the click event is done? I mean after it does this, it does all these lines. When it gets down here and that's the last line, nothing else for it to do, then the computer will, when it gets a chance, it will erase all these things and it will remove any values inside your variables. It'll erase these and all these. Now I don't care about these because these aren't keeping track of a running total. Okay, see the difference? It's a little subtle, but you will find that it's an incredibly important skill to understand that there are a lot of times when you have to declare things up here so that you can access them. One note, please don't call these global variables. Everybody wants to call them global variables. Just call them class or form level variable because global variables are really reserved for something else. A global variable would mean I've got a multi-form project, 2 or 3 forms maybe, and some other classes, and I want to be able to access them through all those classes, through my entire application. Then you would create a global variable and you would put it somewhere else. It has to be in its own special place. So don't call them globals. I know people like to do that. All right, now hopefully that will explain how I did this. If you're not sure, please run this again and try it yourself. And I really want you to try the substring bit so that you understand it. So when I show it to you on a quiz or a test, you can tell me what it's doing and what the result's going to be. All right, so this again is called using totals and counting, and this is the 2015 version. So it'll be zipped up and it'll be available to you on your page in the normal place, and it'll be right here where it says list boxes dynamic properties. And this is the video that goes with him. Okay? Excellent.